Hi, Ashit.
Hello. Yeah, so nice to actually be with this panel today. And I think we've got what 38 minutes according to the clock right now. So let's just start straight and call out the first bit which we were just discussing, backstage around, which is the whole elephant in the room, which is this fear of a recession which is coming its way and the winter setting in. What does it mean in 2023 for all of you? I mean, is there a certain level of volatility that comes with it? How does it shape up for each of your businesses?
Um, I think it's a very exciting time, to be honest. Clearly the consumption is significantly increasing. So what you have to see is that what that relevant marketing mix is going to be, right? Where you get a share of emotions versus share of voice. So I think for marketers, that's the task up in 2023, to be honest. So at least that's what I feel. Anuja, what do you think?
I think, while some feel that the winter is approaching, I feel that the market is really warmed up, to the D2Cs especially. So like Isha said, it's a very exciting time. The consumers are very clear of what they want. And which also means that because there's a lot of options out there, the brands really have to be at their top game. With respect to brand building, with respect to making, the best of the, products available. And I think that's really sort of, I think the next year and beyond, we'll just see the competition really intensifying. But I think some great work, especially for marketers, from marketers that we can hope to see.
Okay, so whichever way it pans out, right? Whether it's a recession or things continue to be great, I think it's going to be a fantastic year for marketers. The reason I say that is, of course, if you have a great year, there's consumption on the upside and all of that. So you get the rising tide raises all boats, right? But even if it's gloom and doom, what it will do is it'll separate the wheat from the chaff, right? So the marketeers who know their consumers best, who know how to utilize their money the best, how to get under the skin of the consumer, get the max ROI and not just spend on vanity matrices, but truly business driving matrices, will do very, very well, right? And it will strengthen the function, whichever way you look at it.
So on this one, I would like to say that during recession, one thing comes is that all the marketeers, along with the businessmen, they take the wisest of the decisions. And when it comes to spend, during when the market is upbeat, we tend to spend on a lot of things which is not required. But I think during recession, we keep our choices limited. So what happens is that the marketing effort which you're putting into your work, it's going to be really, really targeted. And I think the right set of consumers are the most benefited ones when it comes to targeted marketing. And you know that during these times, you get to figure out who is the right segment, who is the right audience you want to go after. And second thing, this is going to be very, very sector specific. And there are certain segments, which are prone to recession, but there are segments like healthcare and insurance, which may not be that affected by recession. So if we consider those points, I think there will be some sector which will continue to grow in 2023 also. But overall, it is going to benefit, I think, marketing fraternity, because till this point of time, we were doing a lot of things which were not meaningful, and it will give us time to think, what are the things which are not working out, and let's put them off, and let's focus on things which are going to work out. So I think it's good time for marketeer, and let brains guide these efforts for us while we continue our path of growth.
That's very interesting you say that, because Pristyn as a business is optimizing the given healthcare system, right, and finding an opportunity there, of course, with a certain value benefit which comes with it, right? But in the case of you guys, right, you have an acquisition strategy. Mostly it's FMCG. In your case, you have to be frugal. How do you balance building a brand and keeping cash burn intact, especially given the fact that there might be a certain cloud that's looming in 23, and we kind of know of it, right? So how does it work for you all? I mean, in his case, it clearly seems that he's excited with the opportunity of people trying to optimize their pockets, but it definitely affects discretionary spending, right?
So we look at, of course, clearly brand to performance, performance to brand. For businesses like ours, we work very, very closely, right? So we look at the full funnel. So it is not just about the passive consumption metrics, right? Like views, reach, impressions. It's actually about the active consumption, and we sort of track that very, very closely. So like if we are working with creators or if we are working with influencers to drive demand, then we do look at what are those shares, what are those comments, what are those reactions, what are the conversion from those links, etc. So I think that connection between growth and brand for us is very, very significant. So that in a way sort of prepares us for looking at the full funnel, and the entire machinery is built like that. And that has given us the kind of growth or visibility with the traditional giants in a way, if I may say so.
I think for us, Ashit, while we started out at Honasa being a direct-to-consumer brand, we're now fairly sort of diversified, in the online space with a lot of market place presence as well as a fairly strong and growing offline presence. And so therefore, I think we've got very strong, I'd say, business KPIs which we've been targeted at, and I think we know very clearly what those are for each of our channels, and what sort of drives all like Isha spoke about all the top of the top of the funnel right to the bottom of the funnel KPIs. So I think again a full funnel approach. But I think I'm just kind of going back to this point again on consumers being discretionary, etc. I think these are always great times because it forces marketers particularly, right, to become extremely analytical, very decisive, and I think creative in the way they spend the dollar. Because there will always be the task, especially for us, there will always be the task of strengthening the brand KPIs, but there will equally be a constant, challenge, or I think a constant task again to ensure that the brand strength is translating into consumption and conversion, and I think that kind of keeps you on your toes. So I think all in all, despite this being a discretionary category, I still believe that eventually the category consumption doesn't go away, but the consumer becomes very choiceful of the kind of brands that they associate with. So both your functional payoffs and the emotional connect that you build with the consumers, you've just got to be, extremely choiceful and decisive on those.
Before I answer this question, I want to ask the audience, how many of you know Bharatpe? Like, show of hands. Quite a few. How many know what our business is? Like, how do we make our money? Okay, so very few. So very quickly, right, we operate in the financial services and loyalty space. We, of course, have our marquee brand, Bharatpe, which is payments and lending to small shopkeepers. Think about the Gupta General Store next to your shop. We provide them lending, which banks can't underwrite, and we have our secret sauce. We have our massively successful post-pay BNPL brand, number 2 in the market right now in Indian market, where we give you like a credit card that works on QR as well, right? And then we have an investment product called 12% Club for consumers. And lastly, we have Payback, which is largest loyalty, multi-brand loyalty program, right? So you earn payback points and you pay with payback points. That's the thing, right? Now, coming to the question that he asked, right, on saying that how do you manage cash burn with growth? For me, to be honest, Ashit, and I completely agree with the ladies here, it's not an either or question, right? If your every marketing dollar you're spending, whether it's top funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel, wherever you're spending it, if it's not bringing down your cash burn, you're doing something wrong, right? Oftentimes people mistake saying that, oh, this is brand building, this will burn cash, right? That's a misnomer. In fact, YouTube is publishing a study on what we did with Postpay, where the moment we started doing top funnel, and this was a concerted effort that we did it, right? Our CACs actually came down. Right, our total cost, the way we measure of acquiring a transacting consumer, came down with an order of magnitude, and at the same time, our scale more than tripled. Right, so it's never going to be a question of saying that you can't spend marketing dollar and there too because there is too much burn. Then there's something wrong with the equation. You have to say that I'm going to burn marketing dollars because that allows me to reduce the cash burn because I'm adding so much more top line to it that my bottom line is automatically justified. So as long as marketing treats itself as a not only just a sort of a center of making cool stuff, but more about a business responsible function of saying that we are going to drive growth profitably, and that should be the profitable growth should be at the key for any marketer to be successful.
Actually, I think you kind of answered your bit, but I will pose this question slightly differently. And I think, given the conversation that we're talking about how we're optimizing it, the fact that your industry, especially the industry that you've kind of gotten into, you've carved your niche there, right? You are taking on what is traditionally known as healthcare, and in many cases, so is Mamaearth, and so is Wholesum Food, and so is Bharatpe, right? You're taking on what is traditionally known on your sectors, right? How does this pan out for you in terms of what do you think is working for your brand? Because each of you, as brands, are very successful, and when you are taking on something which is traditional, which is known, has equity in the past, you come out as disruptors. What do you think worked for you, and how do you think that success kind of follows your brand?
So, Ashit, again, I'm coming from healthcare, Pristyn is into healthcare, right? So, again, a very traditional sector, but we are trying to do different things. And then it's not that, healthcare is a new topic here. It's being done for ages now. Pristyn Care is also doing similar kind of surgeries, by the way, which is being done. So, model-wise, all things are same. Where the difference comes in, and same for other sectors also, for example, fintech and payments, same for FMCG, same for personal care also. So I think there are three things which matters a lot. One is character. What kind of character do you bring to this domain? Second thing, what are your values? And I think Mamaearth has done a great job there in terms of, how to project your values so well. Third thing is, what is your story? And I think this is where Pristyn has differentiated among others. So for example, a very simple topic like pile surgery. No one talks about it. Why? It's a disease. It needs to be taken care of. But we have made a taboo out of this. Again, not required, but it is being done by society. Even you go to a hospital, you cannot get proper treatment in a private space. So these are the gaps in our society and in our healthcare sector, and these are things which we are addressing right now through our marketing campaigns also. That why we can't talk about it. So I think. Business remains the same more or less, but character, values, and story. These three things should differ, and I think from these point of view, these are neo consumers, the new kind of consumers. They want to understand, what this brand is about. Who do we stand for? What do we stand for? And why do we stand for? And this is where I think all new age brands have been able to make their own mark. And as I said, for healthcare, that has been our differentiating factor. And coming back to the dollar in terms of how much you're making money or how we are spending money, I think in healthcare there are a lot of regulations, the way you can market. So again, we cannot change the unit economics a lot. Second thing, the share of pie. It is so huge. So in terms of elective surgeries, there are 43 million elective surgeries happening annually. We are like 0.01% of that as of now. So even if I triple my market share, it's going to be like 0.03%. So there's a huge market, and so we are not burning money. We are actually providing our consumers with better choices. And then I think not just one Pristyn, probably to improve our healthcare services in India, probably we need 10 kind of Pristyn care in India. So there's a lot of space.
That's very interesting because, especially in case of Mamaearth, the fact that you have a sustainable conversation which flows through everything, your entire purchase cycle, to you planting a tree and so on and so forth, and the fact that you're taking on vetting of ingredients as a very interesting sort of a way of positioning yourself, no paraffin and so on. How did it work out for Mamaearth? Because coming literally from from the cold and taking on an HUL or a PNG, and in categories that they're traditionally known for, how did it work out for you?
So, obviously the company was formed, a little less than about 6 years ago. And I think the sauce that's not secret for sure is, it was the identification of an opportunity by the then parents, who saw that, a whole host of baby care category was largely filled with, a lot of chemicals and so on. So I think firstly, and I'm also kind of going to try and answer the question that you posed, right, on how do organize it, what has really worked. I think the product market fit which largely first came on the back of a very strong relevance, right? Because they realized that the problem was not just theirs, but of many other parents. And that obviously then extended to multiple categories, beyond the baby category into personal care, saying, there is a huge ask for natural, a huge ask for, removing the toxins and the harmful chemicals, but possibly nobody was really paying heed, to that need. So I think firstly, there was a very strong, relevance that I think, Varun and Ghazal identified. Secondly, I think again, just going back to what's worked is a very strong distinction that actually they kind of multiplied into a disruption, on the back of not just differentiation through functional ingredients and payoffs, but like you spoke about, a very strong purpose that the brand, has managed to own, and I think has managed to, continue to dial up with the whole plant goodness, intervention, because we very strongly believe that, we're not just in the business of FMCG, but, we're in the business of doing good at multiple levels. And I think finally, I think at the end of the day, it's really then about, constantly experimenting. I think, almost that having that little paranoia, right, of what may not work. And I think therefore that whole culture of agility, but at the same time, the culture of ensuring that you treat yourself literally like a startup, even if you become a unicorn, so to say. But how do you kind of keep that culture? So I think these are three things that have really worked for the Honasa Group. Of course, Mamaearth being the flagship brand, but that's the culture that we've taken forward to all our brands ahead as well.
Yeah, very interesting. And that's a great storyline, It creates long-term empathy with your brand. So in the case of Gagan, there is optimization that you're delivering. Parth, in your case, right? What is it that really, really was the sweet spot?
Yeah, I think you will not find a different answer, right? You've got four great companies, representatives of four great companies here. All of them very young, have grown very, very rapidly. And I think there are only three underlying principles. I think number one is consumer proximity, right? And that reflects in the products that we build, that reflects in the promise we make to the consumer, and that reflects in the promise we deliver to our consumers, right? And I think that is critical. So you can call it product market fit or any of the new jazz words, but really at the core of it, it's consumer proximity. You really know your consumer, you really know what you're solving for, and you are constantly evolving with that. The second part of this is a distinctiveness, right? The way you approach them, how are you different from five other people, right? Because there might be five other people who are saying no paraffins, or five other people, though there's space for hundreds of them, Pristyn, but there will be a lot of people offering elective surgeries. But how are you distinctive in your own way? How do you stay true to yourself, right? So you stay true to your customer, you stay true to yourself. That's point number two. And the third thing is, how are you consistent? Right? How are you evolving? How are you consistently evolving? Right? Every time, every touch point you remember now, it's no longer that linear IDA models or whatever you call it, right? You have to think ecosystem, and you say, when my customer care executive answers a problem, does he show the same empathy as I portray in perhaps my lead TV ad? Right? So if you are proximal to your consumer, you really know your consumer, you are distinctive and true to yourself, and you're consistent about both these things, you will make great brands. And look at the four companies that we represent have done exactly that.
Yeah, it's a very fair answer. But speaking of consistency, I think the one thing that consistently features in all your marketing plans is the use of influencers, right? And it's one of those areas that everybody has a point of view on. I want to start with a relatively difficult question. How do you choose influencers that don't work for you? How do you exclude them from your plans, right? Isha, especially in your case, given that D2C brands and FMCG, and you're taking in that category, you're taking on very lean marketing efforts, and influencers tend to be like thick of your marketing plans. How do you exclude who not to go with? How do you choose the right people for you?
So when we started Slurp Farm, which is the flagship brand, right? What we thought was that how are we going to reach out to real mothers, right? So we started scouting the ecosystem, actually started looking for mothers who actually, believe in the idea of using super grains in their children's food and getting it to the center of the plate. And what we started doing was then started reaching out to them, to be honest, and started sampling our products. And over a period in time, we thought that there are three, if I was to say there were three tick marks, if I was to choose any person who's, talking about my product on any ecosystem, because at the end of the day, whether that's an influencer or a creator, what they are enabling me to do is, actually in the right way, disseminate that product information, which is going to either, create a sense of belonging. When I say that we are, we share common thoughts, and that's why we use this brand, or it is going to bring back a nostalgia, because, we are bringing that traditional wisdom back to your child's life in some way. And the third is that there is a sense of relatability. If all these three are a tick in the box, then we feel, okay, this person should work with us, because we can actually build a long-standing relationship with them. So they are not just, people who we pay and get them to advertise for us, but they are somewhere our advocates in the long run who genuinely believe in the brand, right? And I think that's the reason we've been able to create such a large pool of mothers. I mean, I work with over 3,000 mothers that continuously work with us, who do product trials with our testing with us. They even give us feedback of what worked in the product, what didn't work in the product. Because if I'm making noodles, which are maida-free, right, which are made of millets, the texture changes significantly. So they have a lot of feedback to give us. If we make pancakes, we make laddus, all made of ragi. So we need their feedback. We need them to be very, very close to us. So right from the A-listers or to the macro, nano, or however you may classify them, honestly, for us, they are our advocates, and we work very closely with them. In fact, our founders know each one of them, and therefore the entire marketing ecosystem that we've created around it is very, very different. So yeah, I guess relatability is our big tick mark there.
I'll just add on to that bit, that apart from the fact that how do you select, it's also it will be pretty interesting to know that how do you differentiate between an influencer and a content creator, because both of them seem to be very replaceable terms. Is it so? And if not, then how do you make it part of your mix?
Honestly, I think, the one art I've never learned as a marketer is to leverage jargons well, right? But I'm going to try and attempt that because I've been put on the spot. So I think to answer the first question, Ashit, I think the principle of inclusion on the influencers becomes very important, and that's when you decide who to leave out. For brands, and particularly again at Honasa, we're very, very conscious of ensuring that the authenticity of the brands is kept at the center of everything that we do with, with the ecosystem, because you have to remember that every influencer, as we know them, right, is a brand in themselves. And therefore, ensuring that your brand appears to be as authentic, as it is across the other mediums of marketing and advertising. The values are sort of carried forward by the influencer is one. I think the second is synergy. What we also may see, obviously, today is that a lot of influencers are endorsing many other brands, right? But in the whole ocean of endorsements, is there still a very strong synergy that, helps your brand to stay afloat in the minds of the consumer as a top of the mind brand? So I think those are two that are extremely critical. And of course, the third is, the performance metrics of the influencer over a period of time. That then helps you to ensure or decide whether you want to continue or you want to sort of, move on. And at Honasa, again, I look after Mamaearth, Dermaco, and Be Blunt, and they're all very different brands. And we've got very strong guardrails on our, on our influencer marketing in terms of the choice of influencers, because they're such unique brands, and they carry such unique values that even if there is the same consumer who's a Mamaearth user and a Dermaco user, the going in reason for buying the two brands is very different. And therefore, the choice of influencers, has to be sort of looked at very, very discretionarily. To your question on the influencer and the creator, I'll attempt this one, right? I feel the influencer is the larger bucket, right? Why are we reaching out to other people? We're fundamentally reaching out to any source or any medium because they potentially have, an authority, they carry an authority or are a source of influence. And that's where, you reach out to various people. Now, they may be followed, because let's say, like Isha mentioned, they're seen to be, moms who are knowledgeable. There could be influencers, who are seen to be experts when it comes to skincare. And I think then it kind of starts to go to, the creator ecosystem, as we call it today, as people, who are seen to individually, right, aside their ability to talk about your brand, are, have the ability to create interesting content that you want to watch, watch or interact with, agnostic to the brand. And I think that's where, if a brand can come in, again, very meaningfully partner, right? I'm going to keep using this word till the cows come home, because I feel ensuring that you're not doing these partnerships for the sake of it, but you're consciously, consciously and consistently ensuring that the authenticity and the meaning of tying up with these, creators, because people love them for the kind of content, music, gaming, etc., that they're creating. But at the end of it, look at them with the same lens to say, does he or she carry my brand values as, in as much an authentic manner as I would like? So that's the long attempt.
Yeah, in fact, Parth would have another point of view, and like we were discussing, on the use of influencers and how does it actually deliver value for your business?
So, at least personally, and the way we look at it in our company, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Right? Who would you trust more? Somebody on Instagram, really famous, maybe, I don't know, Variku, whoever, right? Somebody telling you, oh, this is great, blah, 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 blah. Or your friend coming up and telling you, hey, this product is great.
Absolutely.
What would generate likelihood of
That's
buying?
such a very easy answer, right?
Right?
But yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about influence as a fundamental concept, we tend to look at it separately on saying that what are we talking about? Are we talking about influencers, and are we talking about the creator economy? When it comes to influencers per se, we tend to think community out, word of mouth out, much more. And how can we leverage and incentivize it, right? Various ways we do it, referrals and whatever, X, Y, Z, and do it. In my past life, I used to run DTC for a large CPG company in 10 odd countries. And I can tell you one of the biggest things that we did was creating this community of moms, what you guys were talking about. So when we had a issue where there was somebody who's making spurious product and labeling it as our brand and putting it in the market, which was putting children at risk, this community of moms actually defended us, and which saved us a lot of PR losses, right? So building this community and driving this community of your users, your loyal users, is very, very important. Now coming to the creator economy. Short answer, I don't know. Slightly longish answer, I don't know, because it is a cesspool. Okay? And I don't use this word lightly. The creator economy is broken, and especially in India, it tends to be a little more than international markets, both for the creators who find it difficult to monetize their content, as well as for brands who are not really getting the bang for the buck, right? The way we approach it when we talk to creators and various partners who are working in this space is we try to create win-wins with the creators that we partner with. So of course they have to be on brand, they can't be frivolous, they can't be X, Y, Z. There are those guidelines saying that these are the people we work with. But we really try to create win-wins with that. We partnered with one of the top fintech creators in India, and we were able to structure a program where we win if we both win, and we lose if we both lose. And as a result of it, we were able to get our a lot of people, a lot of users, inform them, educate them. The creator earned 10x his asking price, right? What would be his rack rate or whatever, right? For a post or da. And for us, the costs were 1/10 of what they would have been, right? So, but this is not structural in the ecosystem, right? And when you want to go at scale, right, it doesn't work. The second interesting point about the creator ecosystem is the way that we define it is wrong in India, and this is an emerging thing. So that the the micro, macro, nano, all of that thinking around, oh, because he or she has so many followers is completely flawed.
Depends on your bank balance.
Affiliates also, you forgot that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, right? And but that's completely flawed. The monetizable creators are very different from the reach creators and random reach creators, right? But I would love to hear more from you, Gagan, because I worked in healthcare and I know the KOLs and the influence that they wield, right, on doing it. So I would love to hear more from you on
So,
this.
Parth, my take has been that the influencers in smartphones are really active. They are the ones who are making the most amount of money. That has been my experience. In fact, in healthcare, people do hear about a lot of influencers, but ultimately they are guided by doctors. So we neglect the role of doctors as influencers in our community. I think they are the biggest influencers, and there have been instances where doctors have made their own brand. So technically, as Anuja said, influencers are branding themselves. Technically, how this again from my experience at Pristyn and experience at Vivo, the way it works is that you have to define guardrail. We call it character and values. Again, both of these things have to match very clearly. And second thing is that my story should not dilute influencer story, and influencer story should not dilute my brand values. So somewhere this match has to happen very clearly, and that's how we shortlist influencers. In case of healthcare, again, the basic thing is that can we form trust with our audience? That's a primary thing. In our case, awareness on these things do not matter. Ultimately, what matters is that what is the degree of concentration, one. Second, do they trust us or not? And healthcare in India is primarily a regional concept, for example. So a northern hospital chain may not work in southern India because familiarity is not there or the trust factor is not there. So I think Ashit and I worked together in our last campaign actually. So what we had to do is that for Hindi speaking market, we had to use help from Mr. Anup Soni, and for southern market, we had to reach out to Mr. Prakash Raj. And again, I would not go into content creator versus influencer. I'll rather say there are guys who are actually both content creator and influencer, and Mr. Prakash Raj is one of those. He sat down, he said, I want to see the original Hindi script and I want to translate it myself, so that I understand, what is the point which is being said. And I think he's very proficient in all 5 languages I could understand from that instance. So I think the space is evolving, and I think there's lot to learn and lot to unlearn also in influencer marketing. And then I think the future of brand in India is actually dependent on this factor, that how we can utilize influencer to the best possible use.
It's very interesting. So almost out of time, but if you were to create a word cloud for 2023 for your brands, then what would it be? Let's start with Gagan only. If you were to create a word cloud for the year 2023, what would it look like? What would be the 3 words that would define it for your brand?
I'll rather pick the first point you said about, how to save the money. I think till this point we were about, what you can't live without. Now it is the time to find out what you can live with. So spend wisely, and ultimately it is your brand which is going to deliver the value. So your story has to be right.
I would say disruptive growth, profitability, and World Cup in India. That's going to be a big deal.
You stole my thunder, but I'd say optimism, growth, and profitability. Top 3.
Yeah, I think I'd give a different response. It'll be content, community, and commerce. So we're going to really focus on that.